In this video, I'm conducting an interview with my good friend Tommy Tallarico, winner of the 2024 Intermediate World Championships in Monte Carlo. He has an outstanding story to tell, very interesting and very exciting. I'm looking forward to speaking about it, and it should be great in this video. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like and subscribe, and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, what you like to see in future videos so I can work on it. With the membership feature, you can get exclusive access to the most popular videos. My book, Backgammon Strategies, is available. There's a link in the description to where you can get it. And if you're interested in lessons, please contact me via email. My email is also in the description. Again, in this video, it's my pleasure to be conducting an interview with the 2024 World Championship of the Intermediate Division in Monte Carlo, Tommy Tallarico. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alex.
My pleasure. How are you doing today?
Great, fantastic. We got great weather as always, and happy to be talking about backgammon. If I'm not playing, I want to be talking about it.
Absolutely. And you're in Orange County, is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
So for the viewers that may not be familiar with the geography, it's north of San Diego, south of Los Angeles, and Southern California.
that's right. Yeah, which is great for me because I play in the Orange County Club is my like main club, but I'm also 50 minutes from the San Diego Club with Frank Frigo and Michael Pines. But then I can also go up north about an hour to play with Steve Sachs and Patrick Gibson and all those folks. So right in the middle, it's just so much great backhand. Literally hundreds of players playing 2, 3 times a week.
Yeah, great. Happy to have you. Excited to talk a little bit about backgammon. I'd like to start with a little bit of background biographical information, if I may. Can you tell us
Yeah.
about where you were born and raised, please?
Yeah, I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1968. So when backgammon was getting was kind of big in the late 70s, as you know, I was, 10, 11 years old at the time. So it was right in that area. But when I was 21, I left my mom and dad crying on the doorstep and just got in my car and drove out to California, a little two-seater car and drove to California because I wanted to be in the music business or the entertainment business. Yeah, so came out to California. So I've been out here for about what, 35 years now. My gosh.
Very good. And you're in the music industry, right? You're a
Yeah,
musician.
music, video games, concert touring. Yeah, all of that. I was on a TV show for 12 years. Uh, in the early 90s, I was in the doing video game audio, sound design, music, audio direction. Uh, worked on close to, oh geez, over 300 games across all the different systems and things. And so did that a lot. And then in 1995, I was on a TV show about video games. It was worldwide syndicated, nationally syndicated in the US. It was on the Discovery Channel. It was on a video game channel called G4, also MTV, certain MTV and Fox uh, programs also would carry it. And then I started my big concert tour, a worldwide tour of video game music called Video Games Live. I started that in 2002, and it took me 3 years to kind of create it and build it up with another video game composer named Jack Wall. We kind of started it together, and in 2005 we did our very first shows at the Hollywood Bowl with the LA Philharmonic. Everybody thought we were nuts. Everyone's like, who would go listen to video game music with an orchestra? People who go to the symphony don't play video game music, and people who play video game music, people who play video games don't go to the symphony. So like, no one's going to show up to your dumb thing. And but it took a big chance, put all the money I'd saved up over the years into the thing. And people are like, oh, you're lucky if 500 people show up. Well, over 10,000 people showed up, and all of a sudden I wasn't so crazy, and been doing it ever since. Over 20 years since we started now. Gosh, we've done over 550 performances in 42 countries. around the world. Our next show is in Dallas in November. And if you go to videogameslive.com, you'll see it. But it's basically
Yo,
all the greatest video game music played by a huge symphony and choir with synchronized video, lights, and live action and all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty cool.
that sounds great. I used to play a lot of video games when I was younger. Of
I'm
course,
sure we use
aside,
some of your music,
yeah, of
of your
course,
favorites.
yeah, I don't remember anymore now. It's mostly backgammon, but of course, other than other than music and video games, do you have any other hobbies and interests outside of backgammon?
Yeah. I race a lot. So in the race cars and Formula One, baseball, uh, play baseball, watch baseball, um, photography, magic, and basically anything to do with nature or animals. Me and
That's
my
great.
wife just moved into a new place out in the forest. Our goal, our dream was always to, let's retire and live in nature and live off the grid or whatever. So not exactly off the grid, but we're living here in nature and just loving it.
That's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So great. And let's talk a little bit about backgammon. How did you first get into it, or tell us about your first memories about backgammon, please?
Yeah, I remember the very first time I ever remember hearing about it or seeing it was in the late 70s. I'm not sure which year. I think it was 1977. Um, and my mom and dad, I believe, come back from Italy. And uh, in Venice, if you ever go to Venice, they're into like leather materials and glass, Venetian glass and things. And so they had brought me back a little tiny backgammon, one of the little suitcase, with the brown with the white stripe. I see them all the time. Everybody it seems to be like that was the color back then. But and that was the first time they brought it back from Italy, and me and my mom and dad kind of just learned how to play. And it was one of the games that we would play, back then. Of course, you're around my age, I think, or younger. We played Monopoly and Scrabble and
Right.
all that. So backgammon, and of course a lot of cards, card games and things, gin rummy. But backgammon was just one of those things in the repertoire that we would do on weekends or weeknights. So yeah, it was always something that I associated with my family. And when you talk to a lot, and I'm 100% Italian, but when you talk to a lot of like Armenians or Israelis, it was something that was a big part of their family and growing up. So when I talk to people and you talk about, oh, where did you first learn? It is interesting how so many people associate backgammon with their childhood or with memories of their family. And that certainly rings true 100% for me. And what gets me emotional when I even think about it, because it's something that's so close to my family.
Yeah, so you've been playing for a long time. When I was young, we would play too, but I remember we wouldn't play with the doubling cube, and there were a lot
Right.
of
No, same here.
differences.
Yeah, we didn't even know
Yeah.
what that was. Like, is this a special like Dungeons and Dragons dice? We didn't know what that was.
So when did you start taking it a little more seriously and playing more
Yeah.
competitively?
So when backgammon went online, again, being in the video game industry, in like the late 90s, games like Halo and Call of Duty and, in the early 2000s, that's when, video games kind of started to go online, where you could have these online experiences. And so backgammon was always something like, oh, I wonder if there's any like, online tournaments or online competitions. And so I think it was around, I want to say 2009 or 10 when I started to, I found a website and you could actually spend money on it, like to get credits. And you were like, it was kind of like pseudo gambling, actually. Um, and that's when I started to like get into it and start to take it a little seriously. And so what I did was I reached out to I just did a Google search again. So this is, going back 15 years or whatever. And I did a Google search, best backgammon player in the world or whatever. And the name Knack Ballard came up.
Yeah,
One of the old time greats from back then. And I go to his website and there was a contact page. And so I sent him an email and I said, hi, Mr. Ballard. You know, I don't know, do you give backgammon lessons or do you still give lessons or this and that? And he emailed me back a few days later and he said, hey, great to meet you. He goes, I don't really give backgammon lessons anymore because he went on after backgammon, of course, you may know, he went on to become like the Scrabble champion. I think he's the number one ranked Go player
Hmm.
in the world, which for us video gamers, we know the when Go because the name Atari came from the Japanese game board game Go.
Did
Um,
it?
yeah, that's
I
where
didn't know
Atari
that.
got its name. Yeah, crazy, huh? So anyway, I reached out to him and I said, I really like to learn this game. And again, I hadn't read any books, nothing. And he said, no, he didn't really give lessons anymore. And he was off doing other things. I'm like, oh, that's no worries. And I just happened to have a show coming up in San Francisco with the San Francisco Symphony. Actually, that's how I know when I could date this. I could look back on my tour dates and see when did we play. We did two sold out shows with the San Francisco Symphony at the Davies Symphony Hall, which is a very famous hall in San Francisco. And I had a show coming up, and I'm like, I said, that's totally cool. Hey, I'd love to meet you in person. Would you like to come to my show? Because he was into symphonic music. I had
Yeah,
read, and I said
he
I'd love
plays
to.
music.
Yeah, and he plays me. He's a musician himself, and his wife's into music. I said, look, I'd love to. I'll leave you two VIP tickets, backstage passes to my show at the Symphony. He's like, really? I said, yeah. So I met him there in person. I actually have a picture of him still, me and him backstage at my show, first time I met him. And then he saw my show and he saw what I did, and I was hosting the show and the symphony. And so after the show, he goes, hey, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe it. I don't play video games with this music so incredible. He goes, do you still want those lessons? I said, absolutely. He goes, okay, you know what? I'm going to make an exception because you're such an interesting and kind of cool thing you got going on here. So I started lessons, and what I would do, we had a couple of Zoom lessons like this or whatever. I think it was Skype back then. But I said, you know what, I want to get the full experience. So I would fly up to San Francisco and I'd
Really?
spend a couple days up there. And he would, and again, this is pre-XG, I believe. When did XG come out?
Around that time, there was Snowy then and GNU.
Snowy was the big thing. I think he was the one who was beating Snowy, right? I think that was one of his big things that he was known for. He beat it in like 1,000 games or something. But it was before XG, and so he wasn't really teaching me, through like a computer. Oh, here's what XG says. Here's the percentages of this. It was more just about structure and timing, and there are things that he taught me still to this day that I've never seen in any book and I've never seen anyone talk about in any video. And I kind of keep those to myself. but uh, um, but it was in regards to bearing in actually. Not bearing off, but bearing in when there's no contact. There's some stuff that he taught me there that I'm like, wow, like really, really interesting stuff. And then when I put stuff into XG, it comes out correct a lot of times. So it's just really interesting the way like how to bear in and stuff. But anyway, and so that's when I started. I went from like casual to like maybe upper novice, and I started playing hundreds, if not thousands, of games online. And so I played hundreds and hundreds of people. Um, over the years, but I'd never played in person. The only person I had actually played in person was my mom and my dad and Nat. And so I had a friend, actually a friend of my dad's. We were just talking recently about it, who we played at his house in the '80s as well. Uh, anyway, so I play with a handful of people live. but hundreds and hundreds of people online. And then I did really well, and I won, like, a lot of the competitions and the tournaments. And he told me, of course, one of the things he said is get the book, Backgammon Boot Camp by Walter Trice.
Yes.
So that was the first book I got. And then Knack gave me one of his books as well. He only did one book, the opening
Yes.
goals. He was supposed to do like a bunch of them, but I guess he only ended up doing one. And so I got that book as well. And those were the two books I got. And then I just kind of lost touch with it. Life happens, things like that. But so I played hardcore for maybe about a year or two, but still really didn't know much about the cube. Didn't know it was more just checker play and things like that. Um, but then when my father, who I was very close to, he was my CFO in my all my companies. He was my hero and mentor growing up. And then when I kind of started to start my own business in the early 90s after coming out to California, I moved him out here. My brother was out here. So it's a very Italian thing to do, the family business. Everybody come and join in the fun and success. So and he lived in my home. He had an office in my home. And in fact, that's recently why I sold my home after 32 or 33 years of being there. It was very difficult for me to, with my dad now passed away, it was difficult for me to move forward in that home. A lot of great memories. But so anyway, he got sick, and so I set him up with the hospital bed and the oxygen tanks and all that stuff, and we're caring for him. And that was about 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. And I broke out the little backgammon table that we had, and we would play backgammon, because he was kind of, in bed. He couldn't really move out of bed anymore, but we would play backgammon every night. And I retold this story in Monte Carlo to Bill Riles, but I'll say it here as
Yeah.
well.
Please do.
When So one of the last conversations we had, we had just finished a game of backgammon, and it was great because we said everything we needed to say to each other, and it was never Italians are never like silent relationship type of people. We're always, always I love you, big hugs, big kisses, everything, right? Um, and so, but one of the last conversations we had is he said, uh, he goes, you've done everything you've ever put your mind to in life. He says, it's just been amazing watching you grow and be so successful and everything you do, and whether it's sports or business or music, whatever. And he said, I'm just so bummed that I won't be around to see all of the other things you're going to accomplish. He goes, I wish I could be there. And it was a really emotional conversation. And he goes, take backgammon, for example. I know you could do anything. He goes, I know if you put your mind to it, you could be world champion someday.
What?
And it was kind of just a tongue-in-cheek thing. Didn't really even think, much about it. A few days later, he passed away, and I wasn't in a good place at all. I was, going to dark places, and I just felt, for anyone who's lost somebody very close to them, I think we all know that feeling. And this is a person I spent almost every day of my life with for 54 years, and it was tough. And so, I needed something to get me out of the depression, and I did a search on Google. This is maybe 2 or 3 months after he had passed, and I was in a really bad place. I mean, you know, I'll embarrassingly say suicide. And I saw it, and I saw, geez, I put in Orange County Backgammon, and I saw the club, and reached out to this guy named Mario. I know you know Mario Savan. A lot of people watching this probably do. One of the greatest guys in the world. And and he said, yeah, come on down to the club. So I went down there, wasn't sure. I'm like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, but you know what? Maybe just meeting new people and everything. So I went there in the very first day and he puts my name in the, and we do the draw. Do you know how to use the cube? I'm kind of a little bit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you'll be fine. And so we do the draw. And he goes, oh, and everybody's standing around. You've been to the draws, everyone's standing around waiting to see who they play. And they go, oh, we have a new player with us this week. His name's Tommy. I say hello to everyone, Tommy. He goes, yeah, well, Tommy, welcome to the club. Welcome to Backgammon. Your first draw is the 1994 world champion, Frank Frigo. Well, welcome to the club.
Uh-huh.
And so Frank was like the first person I had really ever played in person, like in a tournament situation outside of, in person outside of my mom, dad, and Knack. So that was pretty funny. But Mario really took me under his wing. Paul Mangoni as well. If you know Paul, his wife helps to run the LA tournament, so I'm sure with helps Candace and Patrick and they really kind of Mark Wiener. I met so many great people in the club who really kind of maybe saw the pain I was in, saw and really took me under, inviting me over their house, going out to dinner, making me dinner, teaching me what they knew about backgammon. It was really amazing, and I would recommend to anyone out there, join a club, look in your area and join a club in your area if you haven't. You meet so many great people, interesting people from all walks of life. But that really, really helped me. And so a few months after that, now I'm like, okay, wow, like this is amazing. There's this community around backgammon that I never knew existed that's around me. So then I started to read and I started to watch videos. And Mario said, so starting to get better just through reading all the books out there. And Mario said, hey, look, there's a tournament coming up in Denver. It's a really fun tournament. They do cornhole. They do, it's not just backgammon. They have a barbecue and everything. You should go to it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm not really ready. He's like, no, the great thing about the tournament, and again, I would recommend this tournament to anyone out there, especially for novice, intermediate, or advanced people, is that Dan Minardi, the guy who runs the Wild
Yeah.
West Shootout, he breaks it up into 4 categories. So there's novice, intermediate, advanced, and open masters. And so that was really good for me. And I said, oh, should I go in the novice? And Mario's like, no, you really have a great concept of the game. Your checker play is really good. You need to learn more about the cube, but you should go into intermediate. I said, okay. So I went out there and I went on a tear. It was amazing. I went 17-3 or 17-2. It was something. I ended up winning 3 trophies.
Wow.
I won the jackpot, the consolation, and the DMP. Uh,
Wow.
and so yeah, I'm like, well, and I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000 too. And I'm like, well, what the heck? This is completely like this is amazing. And I met Jonah Seawald out there, who of course Jonah's from uh, the Denver area, and Kara Schultz, another amazing person in the club who has really helped me. And we'll get on the phone and go over matches and certain things. But Kara, of course, learned from Jonah, and she highly recommended him, as well as Michael Pines from San Diego. They said, you got to meet Jonah, you got to meet Jonah. So I went and met Jonah, a super cool dude, and he teaches very different from uh, everyone has their great things. I take lessons from Jonah, Steve Sachs, John O'Hagan, ZZ sometimes, Mark Olson, and I do some stuff with Julius High with his spreadsheets and putting in matches and stuff. Um, and everybody has their own great way. I mean, what a hell of a lineup, right? I mean, how can you not be good if you're paying attention with those guys? But I would say that I've taken the most lessons and probably learned the most from Jonah, just because of the time. And yeah, it really really was amazing. So after that, after I went to that tournament, that's when I started to just think about my dad all the time. And it really hit me when I won the jackpot, and I played Michael Pines in the finals of the
Oh,
jackpot.
really?
This is the first trophy I won. Yeah. I was in the finals and I was against Michael Pines. I didn't really know him that much, but we had a pretty good rapport with each other. And we were just getting to know each other. And it was a match to 9, and I was down 8-0. And and there's a great picture that Mario took of me like this, like choking in front of the score. Me and Michael choking. And I'm like, I got to turn this around. Um, and I ended up turning around and I won. And when I won, and there's a little crowd around us and stuff as we're getting back, as I'd started to come back. And the second I did, and so again, my dad had only been passed maybe 5 months at that time. And as soon as I won, I got up and I reached in my pocket for my phone. I said, I gotta call my dad. And it just
Oh,
boom, it just sorry, gets me emotional thinking about it, but
right.
it hit me so hard. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to make it my mission. I remembered what my dad said, and I said, from this day forward, I'm going to do everything in my power to be that world champ that my dad said I could. And it was from that moment I started to take lessons from Jonah, and I just read everything, watched everything, started taking lessons from multiple, champions. And I probably studied 6 to 8 hours a day. But I'd
Oh,
say I played like maybe 3 or 4 hours a day and studied maybe 3 or 4 hours a day. Not every single day. Sometimes it would only be an hour, but for a majority of the time, I'd say on average, I was playing and studying 4 or 5 hours every day for the last 2 years.
wow, that's great. What
With the
so
goal in mind to go to Monaco.
you took? Oh, so that was your goal. So you took lessons, as you said, and you read books and watched videos. So what books did you read and what videos did you watch, and what would you recommend for others who are trying to improve?
Yeah, no, that's a great it's great question. So I like watching the commentaries, right?
Yeah.
So, when you see the commentaries and they have XG up, and again, people like Mark Olson, or some of these great, I mean, there's so many great folks out there, commentators out there. I couldn't possibly name them all, but the ones who really talk about each move, you'll learn so much because, yes, there's billions or trillions of combinations of dice and this and that, but there are certain things that occur a lot. How do I play this when that happens, or if I'm down this score, this and that? So you start to learn from those. And so watching commentary on some of the great open matches, watching any match with ZZ or Sanders, or and any of the Michi Mochis out there, it's just incredible. And so that's the videos. And I also find that Backgammon Galaxy also has a lot of great intermediate style videos as well. So again, if you're
Yeah.
advanced, novice, intermediate, Mark Olson goes through a lot of really great things. If you go through those videos, a lot of really good tutorial videos. I probably watched his the most out of any. ZZ also has a really good video course as well, and he kind of breaks it up. If you're a novice, if you're advanced, if you're open, you can get his, and it's hours and hours of really amazing material. So from a video standpoint, I'd go with that. From the books, of course, the three big ones from Michi, right?
Yeah.
The opening, what are they called? The back
Open concepts,
opening concepts,
back checker strategy, and
back checker
endgame checker.
strategy, and yeah, exactly. So I'd say that those three are probably, for studying, are the best if you're, again, novice, intermediate. But also what really took my playing up a notch was Cube Like a Boss. That book is unbelievable. And the other thing that Jonah told me to do is to get those Cube 1000 books, right? So there's 3 books. It's called Cube 1000. One of them deals with, and it's 1,000 cube positions, and it's just reference positions. And there's 3 books. One of the books all opening, one of the books middle, one of the books end game. And just looking at those positions, just to, like, because you start to be surprised, like, wow, that's a double, or wow, that's not a double, and you start to understand why. So that was the cube play. Of course, it's everybody's weakest part, right? um because once you get to a certain checker play, I think, a lot of players, even if you play like a 9 or 10 PR even, you'll notice that your checker play is probably still 3, 4, or 5 range, right? It's just the cube that puts your PR way up. So really, the better you get is understanding. I think I saw my PR drop when it had to do with cube, knowing the cube better and better and better. That's when my PR really started to drop, and to understand concepts and timing, which you go over, of course, in your book. As you remember, in my championship match, the first game was in, I won 8 points, and I played a backgammon. Similar to kind of, it was almost similar. I'm
Yeah,
looking at the cover of your book here. I had the 1 3 point, but it was kind of almost similar. And he rolled this just anti-joker 5-4 from hell, and it left me 4 shots, quad shots.
right.
um, but and the great thing is about, not only is understanding how to play a bat game important, but what I learned, and Steve Sachs has a great article on this,
Mhm.
is how to defend against the back game. And that to me is just as important, because when you understand what you're supposed to do and not do in a back game, when you're defending it, it helps you to understand what you should do when you're on offense or defense in a back game.
Right.
So
Right.
really, really, and again, your book goes into great detail on that stuff, and I learned a lot from that. Um, the other book is Francois Tardot,
Yeah.
which is really good. So it was really interesting when I went to Monte Carlo for the first time last year. They said, "Oh, Francois Tardot's here." I'm like, "Who's that?" They're like, "Oh, he's this mastermind genius, and he doesn't play anymore. He refuses to play in tournaments anymore." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, he was huge in the 70s and 80s when he played, but he would take like a half hour sometimes, because it's a mind thing with him, and they were putting some of his positions and some of his games in the XG now, and he was playing like low 4s and 5s or whatever back then. And so he really understood the concept, but he would take a long time, and no one would understand why he was doing things. And so I guess this is what it was told to me, was when they introduced clocks in the backgammon, he said, "I'm done. I'll never play in another tournament again." And he just left the game. But then he came out with this book. There are rumors that he'd been working on this book. And so he brought the book to Monaco last year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got him. So once I heard this story, I had a conversation with him. And he wrote the greatest thing in my book ever. A lot of people, a lot of players will appreciate this. He said, to Tommy, just remember, the more you study, the luckier you get. I just think that's such a great, because everybody, whenever you lose to somebody, you're like, oh, they were so lucky. Whenever you beat somebody, they're like, you were so lucky. It's like, well, there is obviously luck in the game, but it is interesting that the more you study, the better you get, the luckier you get. I thought that was great. So that is a really amazing book as well. I mean, Masterclass, Mark Olson's book. And I also like the 501 backgammon book. That one's really fun, because it's like a fun quiz where it shows you positions, and you have to guess what the right or wrong answer is. But it also tells you why it's right or why it's wrong. And that's a fun way to learn.
So that's great advice. I mean, you've significantly improved by doing all these things, and that's of course what you would recommend to others.
Chouettes too. Chouettes are good too
Chouettes,
sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, we play non-consulting chouettes. You guys play consulting after the
Yeah,
tournament?
I've never played a non-consulting chouette. We play consulting chouettes because it's fun. It's more fun now. I mean, it's there's more decisions and more talking. And again, for somebody like me, I'm learning. Yeah.
I think that's much more educational because people are
Yes.
talking about things.
Yeah, if it's strictly a gambling thing, I get some people play backgammon just to gamble, right? I mean, it's a part of the game. I'm not one of those players. A lot of
Yeah.
our people in the Orange County and San Diego clubs aren't really like that. I know LA's cutthroat, man. I've been to some LA clubs, man. They don't mess around. They're like $20 a point. I'm like, whoa, no, no, no.
Oh yeah, there are people that play more.
Yeah.
What about playing with software like XG? Do
Yes.
you play
Thank
against
you.
XG?
Thank you. Yes. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot that. Yeah. So one of the great things that that Jonah teaches, I don't want to give away too much of his too much of his stuff, but one of the great things that Jonah teaches, or that he tells me, not even teaches, but he always says, hey, before any match, like an important match, play 4 or 5 1-pointers, on XG just to get up to speed. Another great thing he told me about is play a single game on XG and see how far you can get without making a mistake. And as soon as you make a mistake, start over again. And see, and so, okay, opening roll, because that's a great way to learn opening rolls on a DMP situation, on a single game experience. I've won 5 or 6 DMP trophies over the last 2 years, uh, because I'm really good at DMP situations where it's like, okay, cube doesn't matter, gammons don't matter, then I'm going to force you to hit me 3 times or whatever. So, but that's a really good strategy to think about as well, is playing on XG, 1-point matches. Oh, I made a mistake on the second move. Darn it, go back and understand why and learn why. Oh, okay, I see it with this and that. So I tell you what's going to change the whole backgammon sport is when somebody incorporates AI into like GNU or XG. When that happens, I mean, imagine playing XG and when you make a wrong move, it can tell you exactly why. Because that's one of the bad things about XG, or not bad things, but negative things, is that, or challenging things, is that, okay, why is that the right move? I sometimes scratch my head. I'm like, it's telling me this is the right move. I don't even understand why sometimes. Once they incorporate AI, and it's coming. I had a great conversation with Mark Olson about this year in Monte Carlo. When that comes, the level of playing is gonna really go up.
That was actually something, since you mentioned it, I'll ask you, a lot of people ask me, okay, so XG cannot speak to you. So how do you learn from XG? So how do you learn from XG?
The way I learn is I play against it. When I see a blunder, uh, I might take a screenshot of it and then ask one of my teachers. If I don't understand it, I'm like, what? Some things are obvious. Some things are like, oh, dummy. Yeah, of course. Okay, I can understand why that makes sense. Or, gosh, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to run here at this point. Should I leave my anchor at this point? Or oh, I shouldn't have left it. Damn it. Okay. I want to understand why though, because it seems like that would have been a good point if he's up on the roof or whatever. So I mostly learned from XG by taking screenshots and then asking players that are better than me.
Yeah, yeah. What
But
I
here's the
do,
thing about XG. I mean,
yes.
this is my personal opinion about XG. I'm not saying it's right. It might be controversial. I don't know. I'm not, the greatest backgammon player in the world. Again, I'm a good advanced player, but I'm by no means like all these folks. But here's my personal opinion on it. Um, XG is great, but I certainly don't go when it comes to cubes and certain positions, especially back games, by the way. Um, I don't rely on XG, and because I feel that XG is assuming that you're a perfect player and that you're playing a perfect player, right? So it's two perfect, unflawed human beings playing each other. Well, that's impossible and that doesn't exist. So the whole concept of that is a little, is a little weird. One of the things, and Steve Sachs actually talked about it in the commentary during my match. He mentioned that he says, yeah, Tommy's a really good judge of reading people, right? So I do a lot of, and I don't play poker, but I use that kind of poker mentality of, watching what people do, making certain gestures and watching to see how they play, or I'll throw a quick cube or I'll snap a quick cube just to see how they react so that I can use that information maybe down the road to my advantage. And so for X, if I'm playing somebody who I know is better than me, I use the cube completely different than if I'm playing somebody who I know is as good or who I'm stronger than. So to that point, I'm not an XG purist. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I think it's helped me analyze and do so many things, but I don't play my game exactly according to what XG would want me to do. I guess I'll say that, and that might not be right, but it's worked for me, especially in regards to the cube, because I'm more apt to, like, if I'm always trying to get even away, and I want my opponent to be odd away, right? That's like a really important intermediate advanced thing to start to understand. Like somebody who's an intermediate player might not understand that, right? To say how important it is for you to be even away and for your opponent to be odd. You always want them to be odd. You always want to be even. So if I'm playing a player who's really good, right? And I might be too good to double and I'm odd away, I'll throw the cube knowing I'm too good to double. I don't care because they're better than me and I want to get even away. Now, if I'm playing somebody who's worse than me and, I might not throw an early cube, I'll throw an early cube against people who are better than me. I'll throw a later cube who are people that are not as good, right? And that's just kind of a strat. Again, might be totally wrong. People might disagree. I totally get it. But for me, it works for me as a strategy of, um, I guess what I'm compensating for opponent,
Right.
compensating for my opponents.
So yeah, you can actually deviate from optimal strategy, and that's
Yeah,
something that Dirk Sheeman writes about in his book. I wrote about it in my book, and I'll do that like when I'm playing opponents that like we play weekly, and I know them. So like
yeah,
if I know it's technically a correct double, but it's a small double, but they're gonna take way later. Sometimes
right.
some people they'll take even if it's too good to double, too good to redouble or too good to double. So if you know that, you can kind of take advantage of that. So that's outstanding. Some of the things that I do with XG is like, yeah, it doesn't speak to you, but sometimes like I'll do experiments. So like I
Mhm.
don't understand the position. Well, I'll modify the position and then see what the right play is and see if that changes. If it changes, then I know that thing that I changed or modified was part of the important aspects of the position that made the correct play correct. The other thing that I do, and I've actually been doing this for the past year or two, and I feel like that's helped me a lot, is looking at the dice distribution, which is basically all the next 36 rolls.
Right.
And I spoke with Knack Ballard, and he had been doing that. He said he called it 36ing or 36xing or something like that. And I've made it 1296 because in backgammon, like in life, you don't know what's going to happen, but there are 36 possibilities, so you can move your checkers around to maximize the good outcomes for you and minimize the bad outcomes for you, and vice versa for your opponent. So when you start thinking about these, for me, it's helped a lot. So like I'll use that dice distribution tool, and it's just like, okay, you make a
Mm.
play, then you just have to think about how every single roll plays. Okay, there are 36 of them and there are 21 unique ones. So you think about those and that's kind of like how you progress. So yeah, I think XG is a good studying tool, and then sometimes you'll deviate from
Yeah,
that.
Steve Sachs always talks about that too. Make your bad numbers good. How can you
Right.
make your bad numbers good? Yeah, that was something we went over a lot before in Monte Carlo as I was, throughout the week, because I didn't stop studying when I got to Monte Carlo. In fact, I was studying even more, because I want to remind myself of all the things. And I take a lot of notes. I'm more old school. I handwrite notes and I have my
That's
backgammon
good.
book. And so I just flip through it and I'm like, oh my God, that's such a great thing. Oh, yeah. If I have 2 points better my opponent and I'm shooting at one of his checkers, that's a double. Like, oh, shoot, I forgot about that the last couple of weeks or whatever, So little things like that I've written down. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's always good to kind of go through that before a big tournament, I find. So I study before a tournament.
Yeah, and you're also very social. When I see you at tournaments, you talk to the opponents. Tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am a talker. I like to tongue in cheek get into my opponent's head if I can, in a friendly way, not in a mean way at all. I've played certain players and they're just mean. Like they're trying to throw you off their game and they're just being rude or just trying to bully you or whatever. So I have played players like that, but I try to do it in a very funny way. And you'll notice, yeah, in even in the championship match, you know, you can't hear a lot of it on the stream, but you can see us. We're talking back and forth, and I'm just, I'm like, oh, you ready for the cube? And I try to always talk when I'm on roll. I'll talk when I'm on roll because it's not good etiquette to talk to somebody when it's their dice and their time. So I won't do it then. I try not to. Sometimes I forget. But when I have the dice and I'm on roll or I'm sitting there making a decision, that's when I start chatting to the opponent, just trying to enjoy your last roll, because I'm cubing you. There's a lot of back and forth, and there was a part in the championship match where there was like a, I don't know, maybe a 3 or 5 minute gap because we weren't on clocks. We were playing clocks were optional, and we chose
Right.
not to do clocks. And so there was a point where I was thinking of he had thrown me a cube. This is for the last game. This is our last game that we played because I ended up redoubling them and winning. And I'm counting the pips, and I'm like, he's only 3 pips ahead. Like, why is he throwing the? I'm like, I must be counting this wrong. So I'm saying this in my head, and I counted again, and I'm like, nope, he's definitely 3 pips. And so then I start saying that to him. I'm like, I say, you realize you threw me a bad cube, right? Like this is a total blunder. We had a very good rapport with each other. Johanatan bats, and he's a teenager. And from Israel, we had a great banner all week, and we had great respect for each other. In fact, it was really funny. As you know, I wore a tuxedo to the final, and I,
Yes, yes. Tell us about that too,
well,
please.
I wore a tuxedo because I wanted to kind of bring it back to, like in the 70s, like you watch James Bond, and he's in the white tux, and when you think of Monte Carlo, you think of the casino, and there's a dress code there. When you walk into the casino in Monte Carlo, you have to wear slacks and I think a sports jacket or whatever. But there's a dress code, and so I think the sport has kind of gotten away from that, and that's cool. You can wear whatever you want. I'm not trying to shame anyone who wears t-shirts and shorts. But I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we brought a little bit of kind of the old school, little bit of class or glamour, let's say, back to the game. And so I went down, and when I knew I was in the final, I went down, and I'm a very superstitious person. See, I have the I have the tie here. You know, I here's the cube that at the beginning of the week they had a big box of cubes, and I'm like, I'm gonna pick the cube, and as I'm picking it, I'm like, okay, this is the cube that I'm going to use, and I'm going to go undefeated with. I'm literally saying this to myself in my head, and I'm not really superstitious, but it's fun. It's fun to like, pretend that it, or whatever, or it just gets you in your mindset. It gives you a positive attitude. So I picked this. And then it's funny and so I had it in my pocket, and I would put it out for every match I played that week. I'd put out my cube. And on the championship match, I have it in my pocket and I go to reach for it. And I realize, I'm like, oh crap, we're playing on their board and it's the big cube. I can't use my cube. Oh no. But then I kind of laugh it off, like, but this is the pencil I used all week. So I really, the cufflinks, the cufflinks I used. So, I kind of, have fun with the superstition part of it. Um, but I wanted to kind of, like I said, bring a little bit to the sport. And what was funny though is when I came out of the elevator and I'm walking into the room, and I had a couple of folks with me, I think Frank Frigo, and we were like, it was like that scene in Tombstone, we're walking to the OK Corral, the one, the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday, the four of them. It was me, my best friend Dave Perry, who's about 7 feet tall, Frank Frigo, Steve Sachs. Here they come, boom! And I'm walking in the room, and I'm wearing a tuxedo, and I see my opponent, and again we're having friendly banter all week, and he comes up to me and he says, he goes, and he was in a t-shirt and shorts, and he comes up and he goes, "What are we getting married?" And and I quickly responded, "No, I thought I'd dress up for your funeral." But so we were having fun with each other. But what was interesting is he went and he actually went upstairs and he changed. This is about 20 minutes before our thing, and he comes down and he's in a nice shirt and pants, and he says, I didn't want you to show me up on camera. And we gave a little fist pump to each other. And then ZZ came up to me the following day, and he goes, I think because he had a final or something. He goes, you know what? I went upstairs and I changed because I thought it was so cool that you're so maybe a little trend will start to spread a little bit with people dressing up for the finals, maybe. But that was kind of fun. We had some fun with it. But yeah, I do like to talk to people, but I'm very respectful too. Some players, they just like, they put their earbuds in and that's it. And I'm like, okay, they don't want to, they want to focus. They don't want to talk. Or some people will say, can you please stop talking? And I'm like, okay, they don't want to have fun. I mean, I get it. I get it. So I'm not a jerk about it. But if there's people I can talk to, and there, as there's certain people who you can have fun with and
Right,
and
right.
really, bust each other's chops and stuff. And I like to do that. I like to talk and this and that, but I'm also very respectful of anyone who doesn't want to.
Yeah, that was an outstanding match. The finals that you played in Monte Carlo. I remember I was watching it live stream. They had multiple streams going on, and
Yeah.
they took a break from one of them when it was like the
The
last two or three
championship
rooms.
match, they moved
Yeah,
my
for
match on the
you.
last
So I
couple
was
rooms.
watching that. I'll put a link in the description so people can go ahead and watch that. But I saw afterwards, I remember you did an interview with Bill Riles, and it was very emotional. Tell us about
Yeah.
how you were feeling at that time.
Yeah, so again, well, here's something that I've never told anyone publicly, that I didn't tell Bill at the time either, but on the last roll. So my dad always taught me to be, positive mental attitude. He told me to read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich when I was like 12 years old. I was reading that book, and things like The Secret, and just having a positive mental attitude. He would always teach me, your glass is always half full. It's not half empty. Always think positive, never think negative, right? You know, as an example, be pro peace, not anti war. for example, right? So that was something that he always taught me my whole life. And so, but what I haven't told folks, and I'll reveal now, is that on the very last roll, um, if I rolled a one, I was going to be in trouble, right? And um, and so I stopped. You see me on camera, you see me stop, and and what I'm doing is I'm talking to my dad, and I felt him next to me, and I was wearing his watch. It's the watch that I bought him
Really?
when I first with my first big check I made in the video game industry. I bought my dad a Rolex, and so I was wearing it during that final match, and I just feel close to him because I always remember seeing it on him. And my arms are starting to look like my dad's arms, like the hair is starting to get gray. And us Italian, we have unique arms, and I'm like, oh my God, it's my dad. But anyway, and so I stopped on that last roll, and I said to my dad, Dad, I said, my whole life you always told me don't think bad. You always think positive, think good. I said, so I'm not going to ask you to not give me a one. I'm not going to ask you that. I want double sixes. So I I don't want the negative. I want the most best thing I could get, right? I said I'm not going to ask you not to give a one. I want to see double sixes. Show me that you're here. And then you see me, and when I rolled it, double sixes stuck the landing. And that's when I started crying. It was people, oh, he's so emotional. And yes, it was emotional. But the real reason I broke down was because was because of that. Like I thought to, I thought to him, Dad, give me the double sixes. And the double sixes were there, and I knew he was there with me.
Yeah, that was very emotional. You have an outstanding emotional story, and it teaches us that, backgammon can change someone's life. I mean,
Yeah.
as you said, you were in a very bad place, and now you're kind of at the top of the world.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I feel closer to my father when I play backgammon now. I can't not think about everything in the journey. So it's my personal way to feel close and to not forget. And one of the things in I think that I've learned in dealing with death the way I have is that you know, because I talked to a lot of people and I didn't go to therapy and I didn't take medication. I took everything raw, I don't drink. I've never drank. I've never done drugs. I've never smoked a cigarette or even tried coffee. So I'm not a substance person at all. If I was, I would probably have killed myself through alcohol or something. So, or drugs, but to numb the pain. But one of the things I learned is that because people, and I would talk to people, and they'd say, it does get better after time. After time, it gets better with time. And it took me about 2 years. Usually about 2 years, I find a lot of people I've talked to, they're like, yeah, about 2.5 years. But what I find personally is that it's not that the pain goes away, it's that you start to forget. You start to you're tired of feeling depressed and sad and terrible, and so you just start to think about other stuff and you don't want to forget the person. And and so I hate that. I hate that it's like, oh, it's not that I'm feeling better uh after 2 years. It's that I'm starting to forget. And so backgammon is a way for me never to forget. So that's why I love the game so much. I love the people. I love the strategies. I love everything about it. uh, it'll be with me for the rest of my life because my dad's right here with me for the rest of my life.
That's fantastic that, it gives you a memory of your family. For me, it was like growing up, we would play, so it reminds me of my childhood. And I
Yeah.
feel like backgammon, not just for you and me, but for a lot of different people, it's a game and it's a good outlet for stress, however that may be. And I feel like, you have such an amazing positive attitude. You set such a good example of how this kind of game can change your life, and I wish we had more people like you that played the game. It would make everything better. So
No, I appreciate that. That really means a lot. Thanks. And yeah, I mean, it's nice that I can honor my papa in some way. It's amazing to me. And it's funny too because I tried to get my wife Shannon into backgammon. I'm like, hey, and she's zero interest, and
I know the
which is fine.
feeling.
It's fine. It's fine. Um, but it was funny though. So this year in Texas and Bill's tournament in San Antonio, which again is such a great tournament. Oh my God, it's so great. The trophies are great. The location is great. You get to walk to the Alamo and that whole thing. So my wife hadn't really traveled to any of the tournaments with me, and oh, we should go to Texas. Let's do the Texas one, and because Alamo and we're into the history of the United States and things like that. So we both of us, and so it's something we could check out, and and so and I made it to
Wow.
three finals. The intermediate final, the Blitz final, and the jackpot. All three finals. And the Blitz, of course, is like an open. It's not an intermediate or whatever. The Blitz is for three finals. And on the last day, I said, and she wouldn't watch me playing during the week. We'd play and this. I mean, she would come down and she'd meet some of the people and stuff, but she didn't watch me play because she doesn't have no idea what's going on. And and so I said, Shannon, it's the final day. I have three finals today. You have to come and watch me play. Yeah, okay, yeah, totally cool. I want to be there for you. Okay, great. I won't know what's going on, but that's okay. I'm there to support you. I said, great. I lost all three finals, zero trophies. I said, Shannon, I love you. You'll never come to another backgammon. And she's like, phew, good, thank
Oh,
God.
okay.
Felt
So it
bad.
turned out
But she
well.
was watching. My mom was watching. My brother was watching. They were all watching the final. And again, she would text me and message me during the thing. She knew I wasn't going to read it, but she says, "Well, I'll leave you messages throughout the thing." And so after the thing, she kept saying, "I have no idea what's going on, but I think you're doing well. It's 8-0. I don't know why." It was what's the cube? It said 4, but now it's 8. I don't understand what happened. I gammoned him. So and towards the end, it was pretty funny. So you try to get other family members in, but sometimes that's okay. You don't have to be in everything, but
Sometimes that happens, and I'm sure your father is watching over you and very proud. Thank you so
yeah.
much for sharing your amazing story. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I know the viewers will really enjoy this video. Do you have any final comments before we go ahead and conclude?
No, I hope to meet as many people as possible at some of the upcoming tournaments. I'd recommend everyone to check out a local tournament, or even if you have to travel a ways. LA puts on great tournaments. California, I just went to Mona's tournament. I ended up
Right.
runner up in the Open.
Oh, great.
They moved me up to the Open category, and I lost in the finals. Again, a funny story there. Mona created these beautiful trophies. I think you saw them, these
They
glass
were.
blown, incredible trophies. I take a picture of the trophies, of the trophy table. And again, I sent it to my wife, Shannon. I said, look at these beautiful trophies. I said, which one do you want me to win? And she pointed to the trophy. She says, I want that one, that blue twisty one. And so I go back to the table and I read the table, and it says, it says, oh, a Masters finalist. And I said, well, I got good news and bad news. The good news is I'm in the finals. The bad news is I have to lose in order to get you that trophy. That's a trophy that if I lose, I'll get it. So I said, I hope I don't get you the trophy. Well, long story short, she got her trophy and I lost, but it was still, nonetheless, it was great. But Mona puts on a great trophy. Dan Minardi, amazing. Bill Riles and Tara in San Antonio, incredible. Miami, I'm looking forward to Avi's
Yes.
tournament, and he's bringing over the Monte Carlo folks. Arda from who, the greatest tournament directors in the world, is coming over and overseeing that. So yeah, I hope to see folks. Please come up to me. My online name is Tommy Houdini. I play mostly on Galaxy and Heroes. So I play a lot of tournaments on here. So if you see me on Heroes, please reach out, send me a friend request, and I'd love to play.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you again, hopefully soon, and hopefully
Yes.
you can meet a lot more players. We'll go ahead and conclude the video. Thank you very much to my good friend Tommy Tallarico, 2024 Intermediate World Champion in Monte
Crazy.
Carlo. We'll go ahead and conclude. Thank you to the viewers for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy Backgammon, please like and subscribe, and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, what you'd like to see in future videos, and I'll work on that. With the membership feature, you can get exclusive access to the most popular videos. Again, my book, Backgammon, Backgame Strategies, is available. There's a link in the description to where you can get it. And if you're interested in lessons, please contact me via email. My email address is also in the description. I look forward to seeing you in future videos. And until then, keep rolling your dice.